Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we're going to talk about adventure by boat. Our guests have recently completed the Great Loop, which according to greatloop.com is a circumnavigation of the eastern U.S. and part of Canada. The route includes Atlantic Intracoastal Waterway, the New York State Canals, the Canadian Canals, the Great Lakes, the inland rivers, and the Gulf of Mexico. Loopers, as they're called, take on this adventure of a lifetime aboard their own boat. I have with me Dave and Denise Lyga from upstate New York. Dave and Denise retired just about 5 years ago. Dave spent his career as a photographer and Denise as a banker. And after a full life of working and raising kids, they decided it was time for a big adventure. And they decided to do it by boat. And they're here to tell us their story of completing the Great Loop. Dave, Denise, welcome to the campfire.
Hey, Scott.
Hey,
How you doing?
Oh, great. I'm so excited to hear this story. When I first heard the term the Great Loop, I have to be honest, I didn't even know what it was, but I grew up on the East Coast. I grew up around boats, and I always kind of had this dream of someday living on a boat down the Intracoastal Waterway. And so I hear about the Great Loop, and that's just like one element of this whole Great Loop. And I don't even know that I realized you could make this circle. So I wonder, for other people like me that weren't familiar with the Great Loop, could you just go ahead and start by telling us about this adventure and about the Great Loop?
Well, the Great Loop. I mean, when we first retired, or before we retired, we didn't even know about it until we started getting involved with boats. Started boating late in life, so we discovered this Great Loop. And this is what sparked our interest in the loop. We happen to start at the St. Lawrence River, and you can go down to what they call the Trans-Siberian Canal system, which takes you through Canada. Which has all these, how many? It was like 42 locks in there.
42 locks, yeah.
And the locks are pretty unique. They're still fairly modern, but they have more of the old characteristics to them. There's a lift lock, which is like two big bathtubs that go up and down, called the Peterborough lift lock, and takes you up 90 feet or 60 feet in 90 seconds. And there's like two of those in the canal system, along with the normal locks that you would see on the Erie Canal or down in the Dismal Swamp or any of those areas. And then there's a lock, what they call the Great Chute, the Big Chute, and that is where they put your boat on a strap and a rail car and take you over the mountain and drop you into Georgian Bay. Pretty unique. We've got videos and stuff of that and some photos. It's pretty neat. It's really neat. So that whole system was really cool. And then once we dropped into Georgian Bay, which is part of Lake Huron, and we went across the Northern Channel into Lake Michigan, and then down to Chicago, and then you go to the river system from the Illinois, the Mississippi, the Ohio, Tennessee, down into Mobile Bay, Alabama. We did a crossing across the Gulf from Carabel to Tarpon Springs, which is a 26-hour run across the Gulf of Mexico, and we do it at night, which was not fun at all. And then you go down to the Keys, around the tip of Florida, up the intercoastal along the East Coast into New York Harbor. And then you go up the Hudson River and then across the Erie Canal into the Great Lakes.
Wow. And there it is. That's the Great Loop.
That's a great loop. But it was like the loop for us was, I think, 5,600 miles on the boat. The thing that shortened us up a little bit is obviously COVID. But normally it runs about 6,000 to 6,500 miles with all the side trips.
6,000 miles. And
Yeah.
how long did that take you?
390 days.
390 days, 6,000 miles in 390 days. So I have so many questions about some of the specifics, especially like the engineer that I am would love to learn more about the lock system because
Oh, you'd
I
love
heard
it.
you say 60 feet in 90 seconds. I want to come back to that and see what that was like. But what inspired you to do this trip? I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about like life before the adventure and then, what triggered this for you guys?
Well, we worked hard, very hard all of our lives, and we were hockey parents, and like when we decided to retire, we knew we didn't want to sit around and do nothing. And like Dave said, we got into boating late, and after a few years of driving down to Florida trying to figure out if we wanted a summer home or not, we just looked at each other and said, "Why? Why don't we just get a boat?"
Pretty
I
much.
love that.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then we can have the best of both worlds. We just go up and down the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like you and we all had a kind of a pre-conversation before this, and that was something that stuck out in my head. You guys had mentioned after retirement that you kind of went house hunting, and just felt like you weren't really getting anywhere. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that experience because it did seem like it was sort of an aha. Like it is sort of this abstract idea. Like, wait a minute, maybe we do a boat instead of a house.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were in Florida. We were down at Fort Myers trying to, check out houses and stuff. And we were having lunch with a couple of cocktails. And, we talked about it, there's so much to see. And most of I guess, most people see the water from land, but we wanted to see the land from the water. And we love boating. And it's this adventure that we discovered, we couldn't say no. We had to do it, and we were pretty set on that once we talked about it. It was a must do. It was a must do.
What I love this. I mean, so this podcast is all about this voice inside that calls us to adventure.
Mhm.
And I'm hearing you say like we just had like this idea came, and then it's some you're saying like you had to do it. It was this must do. Like what where did the idea come from, and can you talk about that feeling of must do?
Well, Dave did most of the research on that because I was still working at the time this was coming together. And, you just started researching.
The Great Loop, and yeah, we already had a boat, but it wasn't the proper boat. But again, we knew nothing about the Great Loop until I started to research it, and then it just here looking at all the what people talked about it, some of the scene of things and things you never see. We would have never experienced the locks and that stuff, and it just that sense of adventure. I think it just took us over, and we're at an age, Scott, that time doesn't stand still,
Mhm.
and we're at an age that you just can't postpone it. You have to move forward if you're going to do stuff like that. Now, the life we lead or led is not for everybody, but anybody that has an inclination of wanting to do something adventurous, you know, it's not a big deal. They should just do it, and it's I had so many friends and older friends that I watched, and they retired, and then
Went back to work.
they got bored. They were sitting there watching the Weather Channel all morning or the soaps, and then they got bored and went back to work. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do. There was so much to see and do, and we felt that we had to do it while we're still able to. You don't have a guarantee on how long you can or cannot do this stuff. So we jumped into it. There was no second guessing.
Yeah, I really love this. And so like this particular adventure, I mean, there's so many different adventures that you could have chosen, but this is the one that you chose. Do you remember like when you first heard about the Great Loop?
I think I just read it I used to get boat magazines,
Yeah.
trawler magazines, and I think
Yeah.
we kicked at it. We picked it
Yeah.
up, and went to the website, the AGLCA website, and started reading about it. I go, God, this is cool. This is absolutely cool. We love boating. It's not for everybody, but it was cool, and it was, your thoughts in the background of the unknowing, yeah, that gets a little, it isn't scary, but, just the unknowing of what, was about to happen.
Hey everyone, it's Scott here. This podcast is a passion project for me because I absolutely love adventure. And it's thanks to the effort of my residential real estate team here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that many of you know as the W Realty Group, that this podcast gets funded. This awesome group of people have unmatched levels of competence and caring for our clients. If you know of anyone looking to buy or sell a home, our team serves the Charlotte, North Carolina market, but we can also help you find an agent anywhere throughout the US or Canada through our highly connected network. When you support our real estate business, you are also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your referrals. So Denise, do you remember this? Like, did Dave come to you with a magazine and go, "Hey, check this out"? Like, what was that like for you?
Well, he talked to me about it a couple of times, and I did a little research on my own. I went, and I was just like, why not? It's, the only trepidation I had was, having to get rid of the house and all of our possessions, and just basically become dirtless. That was the only thing that was hard, but we did it. And then he called me one day and he said, I found this trawler that's for sale. They're on the loop now. And we met them in Fulton, New York, and looked at their boat and decided that was the boat we wanted. And they told us a little bit about their trip, and that's where it started.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, was this something that was a dream that turned into a reality? And
if anything, because we started so late in life, we didn't have that dream. It just became,
it just
happened.
It happened.
It wasn't a lot of thought. Once we knew what we wanted to do, there was no second guess. There's no different thought.
Yeah.
A lot of people in our situation do what you say they do. They dream for years. A lot of people will talk to us because we have done it, and there's other people that have done it 2-3 times. We know this old couple that's done it 30 times. They just haven't stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people, they worry about it. They worry about health. How do you handle health? And
how do you handle your mail? How do you handle your prescriptions?
It
it all falls into place just by talking to other loopers.
Yeah, you get information from, especially joining groups. There's all kinds of groups on there. In our case, the American Great Loop has a AGLCA. It's called the American Great Loop Cruisers Association. And that's how you get information and you network and you learn all this stuff, So it takes a lot of that. I guess it takes away the being scared to do it stuff, because you got people out there that help you with this. And that's a bit.
And so you guys said you got into boating kind of later in life. Like what kind of boating experience did you have up to that point when you made the decision to go do this?
We had a 21-foot bow rider. We had our first boat we bought it brand new, and it was probably 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So we had that for a few years, and then we upgraded into a 31-foot cruiser, that we had on the Great Lakes. Loved it. We were out all the time. And then we learned about the Great Loop. So that kind of made the cruiser wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
For that type of thing. So we ended up buying the trawler, and I had to sell the cruiser, and it's not good owning 2 boats at one time.
Yeah,
it's not good at all.
Yeah. And we spent a lot of time in the St. Lawrence River, and we'd take the boat out and just anchor someplace and spend the afternoon doing absolutely nothing. And that was great.
Yeah. So we bought, so that was basically it. We're kind of different than a lot of people in our situation, but I say that, but I know a lot of boaters, and I don't suggest this at all, that had no boating experience, went out and bought a 43-foot trawler and have never driven a boat before.
Yeah, that is not
so I don't
recommended.
suggest that, but there are people that have done that.
We've met a few of them, yes.
Well, and they probably figured it out as they went, right? But
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
so
even
Some
did we.
painfully.
yeah. Well, but even in your case, I mean, you guys, if I'm doing the math right, you guys only had about 4 years worth of boating experience before you jumped into this thing. And so, what
Yeah.
what
Well,
kind of planning had to go into this once you guys made up your decision that you were going to do this? How much time did it take before you were actually ready to get moving?
we didn't
Yeah,
have a
we
plan.
really didn't have. We're different people, Scott. But I mean, the biggest plan we had to do is what we were going to do with the house and all our possessions, And the house for us was easy to get rid of because we didn't really like living where we lived. We had a beautiful place and everything, but it was the area was going down, so we
Mhm.
wanted to get away from it. So that was easy. That was an easy part. But it's just getting rid of everything. As far as preparing for this, we had the boat, we had what we wanted to do. We were going to do the Great Loop. So,
Well,
like,
we had all the safety gear
we
and
had the
stuff.
safety
Yeah.
stuff. You had to have all that stuff. But I guess, we knew what we wanted to do. But the thing is like a lot of people, we put way too much stuff on our boat that we really didn't need. So
Yeah.
5 months later, we're getting rid of all the stuff that we had on because we never used it. So that was kind of like an over prep. Other than that, I mean, we just said, our friends came down to the dock and, waved us off. And I looked at Denise and I said, well, here we
Here we go.
go.
Here we go. I love it.
Yeah. So the way we handled our trip is a lot of people will try to plan things out.
Mhm.
It just depends on the person. It was like a day by day boat trip for us. We just never went back. We have our destinations maybe 1 or 2 days ahead. We didn't plan a lot, which is kind of, I mean, there's other couples like us, but it's kind of unique in this situation, but every stop, if we liked it, we stayed a while. If we didn't like it, we moved to the next stop, and there's the whole country, we learned on this thing and how unique and great our country is, and the areas that we live in, because each area on this loop was unique in its own little way. Canada was beautiful. The rivers not so beautiful, but kind of unique. And then you got the Gulf is beautiful and the Keys and all that stuff. So
And lots of history.
a lot of history. We
Yeah.
hit all the museums and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So 390 days. When you set out, did you guys know how long? Did you have an idea of how long you thought it was going to take?
I would have to say through the AGL, say, things that we researched, some people do it. I mean, we've known people that have done it in a jet ski,
Yeah.
which is, they're just young guy that they did the loop in a jet ski,
Yeah.
and,
Well, and I anticipated a couple years, and that that was fine. Except, like Dave said earlier, COVID really put a damper on a lot of
Yeah,
stuff because
that's
we couldn't go see things we wanted to see.
a lot of the museums were shut down.
A lot of everything was shut down. Yeah.
So it kind of took away at our loop, but we made it up when we came back, kept boating after the loop.
Yeah. And so for listeners' context, you guys started in July, I believe, of 2019.
Correct.
Yes.
So halfway through is when COVID hit.
Exactly.
That's probably worth some conversation. What was that like for you guys living on a boat and having the world go into a pandemic?
Well,
It's pretty scary. To be honest with
we were pretty isolated, so we never caught it. Number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember we were in Fort Myers at Edison Ford Marina, and that's when they started talking about shutting the country down. I'm saying to myself, there is no way they can shut the economy down like this. They'd kill us. And sure enough, they did. And so then my sister lived in Vero Beach, so we made our way over there trying to figure out how we're going to handle this. The rumors that marinas weren't allowing anybody into the marina. You couldn't get fuel, you couldn't get groceries, and all that stuff. So we held for about a month trying to figure out what's going to happen up the way, and then we just decided let's just go for it. We'll do it as we go along. And we didn't have too many problems. There were some, we had a lot of marinas wouldn't let you off the boat. Toilet paper was a big deal.
Yeah. Everywhere. Not just for boaters.
Well, you only could carry so much toilet paper
Yeah.
on a boat. But, Yeah, but we got through it. It was disappointing to us that we had all these stops that we wanted to go into, and we just said, why waste the money going into the marines? You can't.
Yeah,
No
you can't do
restaurants were
anything.
open, no museums, no anything was open. So it's just like we just headed up the coast to try to cross our wake, and basically, I think that's what it kind of sped us up a little bit
Yeah.
because we didn't go up the Potomac. You can go up into Washington. We never got out to the Bahamas or any of that stuff. So that kind of, it dampened it quite a bit, really, I would say. But once we completed our loop back up in the St. Lawrence, we weren't done. It's too cold up here. We turned the boat back around and went back down to Florida. And after things loosened up, we started visiting all these places we
That we missed
missed.
to begin
Oh
with.
yeah, okay. So you
Yeah.
kind of backtracked a little bit. Well, I think what's really interesting is that a lot of people would see somebody that goes and does an adventure like this, and the worry is like, well, what if something goes wrong? And it did, right? I mean, the world went into a pandemic, but you guys figured it out,
Yeah.
right? And I'm just
Do.
sitting
Yeah.
here talking to you guys about it right now, and you seem pretty casual about it, like a pretty
Exactly.
big deal happened.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know how, like, this is kind of a funny thing, and I got a picture of it, but you know how to get a COVID shot, you had to go kind of waiting list, or
Mhm.
it's really hard to get one, right? So I was in Cocoa Village, and Denise was up here visiting family. I dialed around. I got an appointment to get my COVID shot, right? So I'm thinking, it's Easter weekend. I'll just get a rental car and go over there. It was like 20 miles away and get the shot done. And there's no rental cars. They had all had them out because of Easter, but yet there weren't that many around anyways because of the COVID.
Yeah.
So I says, well, I'll just get an Uber. Well, there's no Uber drivers because they weren't making any money because
Yeah.
nobody was going anywhere.
Right.
So they stopped doing that. So I got on I always go into a place, I get on Google Maps and start checking out the area and see what's it, every place we went. And all of a sudden I see this little icon say U-Haul. So I
I
called,
love this.
I rented a U-Haul truck to go get my COVID shot.
That's awesome.
Well,
Oh, I
there's no
love
need to
that.
do anything. There's isn't really anything that can really stop you if you just. I think that's one thing Denise and I have done the most is we've learned how to relax and figure things out. Where during the before under the day-to-day bustle, you used to get tensed up because you couldn't. It was just too much stuff.
Yeah, I
Now
love
we
that.
can
That
lay
is
back.
resourceful.
Yeah. So
Well, you got to take things in stride. So
yeah, and I mean,
it's
everybody, the biggest thing I get a chuckle out of it. People will ask us, I say they know we've done this, is they look at us and we've basically been on the water 4 years. And the first question they ask is, did you ever run into any bad weather? And I go, no, it's just all been sunshine flip flops. But we've had some scares and stuff, as we
yeah.
got better at it, things became easier and we didn't have any scares after because we knew how to handle the weather and stuff like that, all that came into play.
Yeah, well, so I wonder if we can go there and talk about some of the highlights and maybe some of the lowlights of the trip as you kind of circumnavigated the eastern U.S. Could you hit some highlights for us?
Well, we had we were up in Bad River in Canada, and that would be the North Channel or
Yep.
Georgian Bay.
North Channel.
And we were with some friends, and everybody got their dinghies down, and we only had a 2.5 horsepower motor.
Mhm.
And there's some rapids that you can go up. Of course, our friends had bigger boats or dinghies than we did, but we gave it a good shot. We got like almost to the top, and it just wouldn't do it. And I was recording it as we were doing it. And I'm like, nope, here we go. We're going backwards.
Yeah, Scott, I gotta say one of the my our I have to say it's probably the biggest highlight is the number of people we met.
Yes.
And many of these people have become lifelong friends that we would have never met if we hadn't done this, and that's a huge highlight to us. I mean, the lot of highlights, from the locks and the dolphins swimming next to the boat, and the sunrises and sunset. You don't get that
Beautiful,
online.
absolutely
You
beautiful.
don't. We have thousands of photographs of sunrises and sunsets, and you don't get that on land because you don't get that color reflecting off the water, and it's just amazing colors,
And after traveling, almost a year, and coming back into the Hudson and just seeing the mountains is
Oh,
just
it's gorgeous.
magnificent.
Gorgeous.
And because you forget, you see all these grasslands and flatlands and stuff, and you're just in awe when you get into the Hudson Valley.
And we had pictures of our boat in front of the arches in St. Louis, and we had pictures of our boat and us in front of the Lady Liberty.
Lady
and,
Liberty, yep.
So I mean, and it's just like the Chesapeake Bay is amazing. I just love the Chesapeake.
A ton of pictures with
Yeah.
our docktail friends, and
Yeah.
we
call
always
them-
docktails is everybody
it's
got.
cocktails, but we call them dock.
Yeah, I love it. Docktails.
Yeah. So, and it's just there's so much that was amazing. Like there was some downsides, but most of them are awesome sides. They're just great. Some of the downsides I think we had is obviously you run into mechanical issues.
Mhm.
I learned I was not a mechanic before we started this, but now I do pretty well with it because you got to learn how to fix things, just like
Yeah.
RVs.
Yeah.
We lost an engine. We had to have an engine rebuilt, which we only had one engine on the boat, so it's pretty
You
important.
can't go too far with no engine.
So we got through that. There's always challenges. We got caught in a couple of hurricanes, not the major ones, but the ends of them. So no damage, but it gets the heart pumping. And I think we got caught in a storm. We had like 65-mile-an-hour winds at Anchorage. Again, we learned how to handle this stuff, and you get through it. You know it's coming. You learn how to predict.
Can you talk us through that? How do you get through that, especially the weather? Because I think that is probably a question that a lot of people would worry about.
Yeah, the weather. I mean, through experience, you learn how to look at the apps. We had this one thing about we talk about this adventure stuff we have nowadays. It's so much easier because of technology. 30 years ago or 40 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do this without a lot of training. But because of the technology, makes it much easier. And like weather, you have your the
Specific
technology,
apps.
Technology and the apps that are very good. You just get one you like, and you work with it, and you learn the weather, and you learn what's coming. You learn how to protect yourself. Like in this storm, we talked about the 60-mile-an-hour winds. We tucked in behind the leeward side of an island, so it keeps some of the what they call fetch. The waves banging on your boat. You're protected from the island. So you learn this stuff. When we first started out, we didn't know this stuff.
Where were you when that was going on?
We were in what they call Pelican Bay, which is Punta Gorda area of Florida, Cayo Costa, just north of Fort Myers. Ian went through the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
The eye went right over where we used to anchor and wiped it all out. There's hardly anything left there anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's just through experience, you got to keep yourself safe. So you stay on top of this stuff, but it's not dangerous. This doesn't happen every day. Probably in our 4 years we've been doing this, we may have had 5 scary moments, I guess. Not scary, but, you just, again, you have to protect yourself. We had one situation that this was just as we got started. We were in Alabama. It was at Orange Beach.
Oh.
Panhandle, Orange Beach. And we went to bed at night, and the big storm blew in, and we thought we were hooked well, and we blew into another boat and did a little damage, and being woke up out of a dead sleep at like 2:00 in the morning gets the heart racing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But we survived it. I mean, we managed to, we got ourselves hooked, and we stayed there the rest of the night and stayed up all night making sure
didn't sleep after that. No.
Yeah. So the question is, you said you made a lot of friends and you had a lot of connections. Did you make friends with the person whose boat you you bumped into?
No.
No, it was a derelict boat.
It had to be a derelict boat.
It was
Oh, okay.
abandoned.
But if we did, if it was one of those boats, yeah, we probably would have made friends.
Yeah.
It happens, right?
One thing we've learned about the boating industry, or boating people, I mean, they're all like super friendly people. You know, they
Mm.
go out of your way to help you, or we all work together. You know, the law of the sea is you never leave a boat in distress. You know, you're always there, no matter if you got to go 100 miles out of your way, you got to help that boater, you know.
Yeah, my sense is it's a real helping community.
It really is. I mean, we were up in Hopewell Bay in Canada, and again, we were traveling with two other couples and their boats, and we discovered that our anchor wouldn't go down, and we're like, okay, what do we do now?
We wrapped it
Well,
up.
yeah, so we wrapped it up to one of the boats that we were with, and it worked out just fine.
And when we got to a marina, Scott, you know, I had to get the part to fix it. The guy's got a brand new pickup truck, throws me the keys and says, "Here you go, take it, go get what you need." You know, I didn't even know the guy. You know, so it's a pretty cool world we live in. You know, you really, if you get out there and explore it and see it.
You know, it is. And I think there are, people that experience life in a different way. And what I'm thinking about right now is like just this helping nature, the kindness that you guys experience. Like, but it sounds to me like that's pretty broad in that community. And I'm just curious, like, what is it about that environment that brings that out in people?
I think it's the water.
I just think it's the fact
water.
that
Yeah.
you have to rely on each other when you're out there on the water.
Yeah.
So
And water relaxes everybody. You're always happy on the water, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been that way in the community. It's not just on the looper side, but anytime you're involved with boating, you know, they're quick to jump out and help you into a dock or grab a line, or
yeah.
you know, or if you're out and about.
Which, believe me, I really do appreciate that when they come out to help dock.
She's not saying I'm a bad docker.
No. No, he did really well. It's just sometimes it was difficult to catch a cleat.
Yeah.
So
Well, my sense too is like this is not an ordinary way of life. You know, you've got to be sort of thinking outside of the box to decide to buy a boat and go do something like this. And so, to a degree, like you have to be resourceful, but you also know that you're going to go through some rough spots. You're going to go through some fun spots, but you hope that other people are going to help you. And you know that when it's your turn, you've got to help them.
Exactly.
mm-hmm.
Exactly. You know, and it's not a life for everybody, you know, but it's been a great life for us, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, it sure sounds like it, especially to be, it's just surrounded with so many cool people. And you wouldn't think that, like you guys talked about COVID and, not being in contact with people, but you did share with me on that first call that connection was such an important part. Like, how does that connection piece happen?
Probably you got people doing the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
You have the same interests, so it's easy to make friends, you know.
And people that are in the AGLCA, they also use an app called Nebo. And if you go into a marina, they'll pop on Nebo to see how many AGLCA flags are in that marina, and they walk around and introduce themselves.
Yeah.
And then everybody invites everybody else. Let's get together for docktails.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can technology. Yeah. That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
That's great technology and how that can use that.
Yeah.
Denise, you used one of my favorite words a little bit ago. You said awe. I love that word. And I use it on this podcast all the time. I've actually brought up the definition from the dictionary of the word awe. It's this reverential respect mixed with fear and wonder.
That's good.
And I just wonder if you could share, maybe a couple of awe moments that you guys had while you were out there.
There were probably a couple, but I can't really name one right now. Well, on the Mississippi, just watching those tows go by you, that could really give you an awe moment, believe me, because the barges that they push are 35 feet wide and 70 feet long, and they usually stack them 3 wide and 9 long.
They can be as big as 5 wide, 9 long, and
they're coming around these switchbacks coming at you, and you're like, hey.
yeah.
That could be a little scary.
Yeah.
And when we're doing the Trent Severn, you got to call ahead when you're in an area that like could be dangerous to other boaters or whatever, and it's a security call. And in places in the Trent Severn, we'd be in a canal that is probably
One boat
40,
width.
40 feet wide. Yeah, and we're a trawler that was 40 feet wide and 14 wide. You're not going to turn that boat around or back up if you meet another boat in that area. And some of these areas were 10 miles long,
Mhm.
so you'd be looking around the corners, just seeing if you could see a bow wave and, who's going to back up. But didn't have any problem there. What was the other thing we had? Great Lakes.
Mm.
You get over in Georgian Bay, or if you ever been up to the Great Lakes, you're going to be up there soon.
I was in Superior a couple of years ago. Yeah.
And you notice how clear the lake is?
Yeah.
Very clear. You can see right to even 30 feet, 40 feet to the bottom. And up in like Georgian Bay, you're going through these channels, and it's not sand like it is in the Carolinas.
Mhm.
They got these massive rocks, and if you hit one of those, you're done. And we were going out into
Echo Bay.
no, this Georgian Bay. We're coming out of one of the little channels, and there was like the waves are probably 6 feet,
Mm.
Oh,
and
when we were leaving Hopewell.
Hopewell, and
Okay.
6 foot high, and we're traveling with three other boats. Of course, they're bigger than I am, but they send me out first, right?
Yeah.
So, I radio back to them. I go, guys, are you sure? And I look back, they had already turned around and went back. And so we get out there, and there's some signs that, if you move over too far on one side, you hit rocks, or too far on the other side, hit rocks. And I've got to get turned around with these 6 foot waves and you know, try not to hit the rocks or roll the boat. And we did it, but that was truly an awe moment.
Wow.
And then the other moments, the good sides of the moments are, like, oh, that trip on the big shoot. And there's a place called Henry's Fish Camp in Canada that
Mhm.
the only way you can get there is by boat or seaplane. These big seaplanes would come in and drop people off at the restaurant. And then when you're at anchor up there, especially in Canada and a few other places along the way, there's no light pollution. So you can look all the way up into the Milky Way, which is it's just beautiful. It's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine you saw some beautiful dark skies.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's so many of them, Scott.
Yeah.
Either way, but so many amazing moments. That just wow. And then there's those awe moments that build respect, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Can you tell us just a little bit about the boat?
The boat, a
Is that
39-foot main ship
trawler?
trawler, had about what, 900 square feet?
Roughly, I mean, it had a fly bridge. It had a berth, two staterooms, a salon, a full bathroom. It's full galley, and just loved it. Loved the boat. It's a great, easy handling boat. One engine. So when you're out there, you join groups like Boat US, which is Towboat US, or Sea Tow. They have like it's like AAA. When you're
Okay.
Yeah,
driving
yeah,
cars.
triple A, yeah.
Yeah. So you could, they'll if you break down, they'll come out and give you a tow into the nearest marina. It traveled at cruising speed was 8 miles an hour. So we did all over the 4 year period. We did 16,000 miles at 8 miles an hour.
I love that.
Yeah, and but it was an easy boat to drive. It was super comfortable. It was big enough for her and I, and we could have no, but we never allowed more than two people to stay overnight, which is her
Okay.
and I, and that's it.
Yeah, we had somebody ask us once, how many people can you sleep? I said, technically we could sleep, uh,
4, 5, 6.
well, we could actually sleep 6 before we removed the couch. And but we only allowed 2 people, and that'd be us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yours. It's yours.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really comfortable boats. It was our home for 4 years. I mean, we loved it. We just loved that boat.
Yeah.
It was hard we sold it
It was
not too
hard to
long
get
ago,
rid of it,
and
but
I miss it dearly. But there are loopers doing a loop in that boat again. It's taking
Yep.
it around again. So
16,000 miles
yeah,
at 8 miles an hour.
it's awesome.
That's awesome. So when you guys tell us about the finish, like when you guys finished the Great Loop. I think you said you went back down to Florida, but what was it like for you guys to complete the loop?
Bittersweet. Bittersweet because we were or the bitter part is we were finishing it,
Mhm.
and the sweet part is because we're finishing. But after it's just like you didn't want it to stop.
Yeah.
It was so cool going. It's just a bittersweet. We had some people met us and took our pictures of us.
Yep.
With a loop, your first time around, you fly a white birdie, and once you've done it, you fly a gold birdie, and we've got our gold, which we fly.
Hmm.
And then if you go 3 times around, it's a platinum. But I think it was bittersweet for me. It was such a fun time, and you knew it was coming to an end, which we didn't stop. But I mean,
Well, we'd started a second loop prior to selling the boat, but because the fuel prices being so high,
Mhm.
$7 a gallon diesel, that's and we hold 300 gallons, so it was like yikes. We've
yeah,
already done the Trent Severn. We just couldn't justify the cost to do it.
to
Continue.
see things we've already seen, so we
Yeah.
just kind of backed off and spent the summer with family.
Totally understand. So, guys, you sold all of your stuff. You buy this boat, you go do this 390 days, 16,000 miles at 8 miles an hour, and then when it's done, you sold that.
We
So
did.
what's next? So what comes next in the story?
Oh, we have we have an Class A motorhome now,
Amazing.
and because we refuse to buy a house yet, we're not ready.
We haven't grown up yet, Scott. We're not
Amazing.
gonna stop. We're not going to stop.
So you guys literally went from the boat to the RV.
Yep.
Yep. One thing about what the difference is between those things is
One has tires.
yeah, one's got wheels, the other one doesn't. But the RV is much easier to work on than a boat because you don't have boat yoga to do inside the engine room,
Okay.
and the boat is more enjoyable to drive than the RV. Traveling the highways, which we came up from Florida up to here. I got stuff I got to learn, man. I got to get off those highways. I got to get off
Yeah.
the beaten trail, man.
Yeah.
And
So
we're really looking forward to
Yeah, we
the
are.
next steps. I
We
mean, we've got a whole list of places that we want to go see. One of them being Alaska. After July, we're headed to Nova Scotia. We're going to probably spend a good month in that area, and it's
the
really
Maine.
exciting.
We're gonna do the Maine coast and uh, indulge on lobster, and then head into Nova Scotia, and then into Canada a little bit, and then back down. And we're gonna head back to Florida where it's warm.
yeah. So I was going to ask you this earlier because you sell your house to go take this trip. I mean, that's a pretty permanent thing, right? I mean,
Yes.
you could have
Yeah.
rented it out or done something to, bide time for a year, but this was kind of a permanent plan. Now you're in the RV. Is there an end game?
Not yet,
Not yet.
but I'm sure there will be. You
Yeah.
know, we are. I mean, obviously, we're getting older. Our age and health will determine what we end up doing. I think our plan is to continue doing it as long as we can, or we get sick of it, or we're forced to stop doing it.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I say keep going. I want to
Yeah.
ask you just for the Great Loop piece. Did you guys change as people in the process? What did you learn about yourselves?
Well, we learned how to live small.
We learned how to live close.
Close. We get, it makes a lot of guys say they envy me because my wife enjoys doing what I do. But we enjoyed it. There was when things get a little touchy, you just get away from each other a little bit, but it wasn't too much of that. She was a great admiral. I was the captain. And I think as a person, I think it's changed us. It's broadened who we are
Mm,
because of what we have experienced. Before we lived in our own little bubble and we did our own little things and all that stuff. Now we've learned all this stuff. And we've seen all this stuff.
Well, we've also learned how to be patient
Patience become a big part.
and you have to pick your battles. Is it really
Mhm.
that important to prove he's wrong? Nope.
Welcome to my world, Scott.
I love it. You guys are great. So,
I think it's changed us a lot, though. I think it's made us better people, to be honest with you.
yeah. In what way? Can you elaborate on that?
I think it's after seeing what's out there and so much different, how each territory that we visited, the differences in the people, the cultures, the language, all that stuff. We never knew that. We only lived in our own little bubble, and saw the same people day in and day out. And it's really a big world out there. It's huge, and with lots of people. And I think we surrounded ourselves with some pretty awesome people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we learned to be a little more open and
Open, yeah.
we learned how to handle the challenges and and like I said, you learn how to cope with just about anything.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, like this whole podcast that and what you're doing, it's really so important. So many people are so afraid to do this. It's not a big deal. It's a shame that more don't get out of or out of their space and get out and experience some of this stuff. Whether it's like going to the extremes that we did, or just doing it, 6 months at a whack or 3 months at a whack, and just getting out there and doing stuff. You don't have to sell everything. We chose to, but
Yeah,
we
we
don't
chose
have to. We have friends that never, they still own their properties and stuff.
I think the biggest thing that we derived out of this whole thing is having that faith in each other that you knew what
Yeah.
you were doing.
Yep, absolutely.
That your first.
You never tell me that. Look at this.
Look at you guys learning. This is great.
Why do you think I became admiral?
Yeah.
I started out as the first mate, and then I assigned the admiral to myself.
I love it. Yeah. Did you guys surprise yourself at all? Was there anything that you surprised yourself about?
I
I'd say I think a little bit because we did this, but again, to us, it wasn't a big deal, but it was, I think it's kind of surprised that we're doing it once we got into it, but it's,
I didn't know how to tie a knot when we left.
Yeah, you did.
she's become a pretty good cleaner.
I didn't know how to catch a mooring ball or anything.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I didn't fall over the rail when I was trying to reach for the rope.
Yeah, so we get better at it. I think the one thing that people our age, that are afraid to do something like this are so worried about the health of field, what's out there, what if you have a heart attack, or what if, you got cancer, or what if you broke a leg? The health field out there in network, you're really well taken care of. We had a friend up in, a looper that had a heart attack while he's on the loop. And they had him into a Syracuse, it happened to be in Clayton, but they had him in Syracuse Hospital. He's well taken care of, got taken care of. It took about a month, and he was back on his way, and we had a friend that had cancer, and she had it, it's all under control now,
Yeah.
but she had, it was one of those cancers that aren't going to go away.
Yeah.
And she learned, she dealt with it. They continue.
well,
They're still doing it.
Yeah, her and her husband just made sure the boat was in the proper place so she could pick up an airplane and go get her checkup and come back.
Or treatments or whatever the case is. And that was like 4 years ago. We ran into these guys, and they're still doing it. They're still on a boat, and she's still, she's cancer free now, but she still has to have her scans once a year and stuff like that. So you learn. There's all kinds of systems out there to get you taken care of health-wise,
Yeah. Well, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate what you said about, podcast and how we're trying to encourage people to listen to that voice and get outside. And I think by you guys doing what you love and then being willing to come on here and share your story, it's really inspiring. It really helps. And so I think with that, what advice do you have for people that are inspired by your story, but maybe are thinking, well, I could never do that?
Do it.
Yeah,
Just
do
do
it.
it.
You can do it.
It's just do it. Don't. you never get another chance, just, do this thing. If you don't like it, once you get into it, you can always go back, you don't have to
Right.
continue, but I think you got to do it. I mean, if I would rather have the memories than the I wish I did, or the should I, or should have, done it type thing. So I would have rather have the memories than that. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there like that, Scott, like you're trying to change or get them inspired. And I'll tell you, man, just do it. Just do it. It's all worth it.
Just do it. It is all worth it. So
Mhm.
Dave and Denise, the Great Loop adventure that you guys took, that was epic. And now you're on part 2. You're in this RV, and who knows where you're going to go next. I can't wait to hear that story. It's probably another podcast.
Yeah.
But at some point, Hollywood's going to pick up on your story.
No, I'll tell you, there's a lot of loopers out there doing the same thing.
But your story's great. And when they make the movie about you two, the movie about Dave and Denise Lyga, I want to know who's going to be the Hollywood actor and actress that's going to play you in your movie.
Well, I told him that it should be George Clooney from The Perfect Storm.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, George Clooney, Denise.
And also the other captain that was in there, Linda Greenlaw. She was played by Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a cast. And what's your movie going to be called?
The Wind's Gonna Change.
Nice. The Wind's Gonna
I
Change.
say that every morning.
We would plan our trip, and the wind would pick up, and he'd look at me and go, "The wind's gonna change." And I told him I was gonna put that on his tombstone.
That's amazing. That has to be the title of your movie. The Wind's Gonna Change. Wow, that was so good. Well, you guys, thank you so much for sharing the story. Thanks for taking the adventure, for inspiring people to listen to that voice. And for those that are listening, I hope you have been inspired as much as I have. I hope that Dave and Denise's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thank you for listening. Dave, Denise, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us,
Scott.
Scott.
Thank you.